Alrighty, hello boys and girls, guys and gals, all those good peoples. Back again, Kyle, Trevor, and we are going to give our first thoughts on the first episode of the brand new Quantum Leap. Kyle, why don't you go ahead and start, because you've never seen Quantum Leap before. What did you think of this episode?
I enjoyed it very much. I thought that interesting. The time travel was interesting, though. Because I've never seen the original, I'm sort of curious at this point now. How far back in time can he actually jump?
So I'm trying to remember. I guess they didn't say it. So like, you know how like it opens with like the text and everything that kind of talks about Sam Beckett doing the Quantum Leap experiment. I guess they didn't say it in that point, and I'll be curious with the next episode, because the way the original series would go, even the first episode, it didn't open the way all the other episodes would open.
Right.
Because after the first episode, all the episodes would open with an opening narration, where they would kind of give you this is how Quantum Leap was kind of invented and everything, but with Sam Beckett, who again is the essentially like creator of the Quantum Leap project, he theorized that one could time travel within their own lifetime. So basically, from the time they're born to the time they're dead, that's how far they can time travel through. Now, in the original Quantum Leap, the interesting thing is that Sam actually had traveled outside of his own timeline twice. And one of the times was actually due to remember the episode that I told you where Sam actually leaves back home,
right?
But then leaves back into the machine. The reason that happened is because due to some kind of circumstance, Sam and Al actually switched places to where it was Sam who was on the outside and a hologram to Al, and Al was actually leaping through time. But it was just for that really one episode. And so it was basically within Al's timeline, and Al is a little bit older than Sam, so he was able to travel back further. So in that sense, assuming everything is the same, and things could have changed with the machine, and again we'll probably know within the next couple episodes, Ben should only be able to travel within his own timeline.
Gotcha.
But yeah, so you enjoyed basically everything else?
Oh yeah, I enjoyed it very much.
So for me, I liked it, and again, I'm going to be interested in seeing how the next few episodes and honestly the rest of the series kind of plays out with it, because there were some things that I didn't like, some things that I did like, and it's just a little bit of a mix of everything. So one of the things that I'm trying to think whether I want to start with the negative or the positive. I guess I'll start with negatives because those are the things that kind of jump out to me. So I saw someone comment on Twitter about people complaining about visual effects and everything, and he made a point that the original series didn't have the best visual effects, and that is true. But I also give the original series a little bit of leeway because it's like 80s and 90s, so they didn't have the best visual effects, especially for TV at the time. And even the visual effects that they had in here that may not have looked the best, I honestly didn't necessarily care for it because, meaning like it didn't distract me. It didn't affect me negatively because like I'm not expecting them to do perfect. It's still like TV budget and everything. But there was one moment in particular that just like threw me off due to the fact that it just looked very bad, and that's whenever Ben and the other guy are in the car driving and talking.
Okay, yep. I was about to say that was probably the worst part
because like
when they're going to the
restaurant or whatever, right?
No, they're going to the jewelry thing.
Oh yeah, that's where they're going. I forget. But yeah, like because it's like the extremely terrible green screen. Like you can very clearly tell that the guy who's driving really isn't driving, and it's just I don't know. And the only reason that bugs me so much is because that's definitely like a thing that they would have done in the 70s, 80s, 90s, and everything. Because like you'll see that in Seinfeld, which in Seinfeld like you don't really care too much. Also, a lot of times when they're driving in Seinfeld, I think it's like nighttime, but they have had like daytime driving scenes, but you're not really worried about it. And again, you kind of give it some leeway because, okay, yeah, they can't do it. But I feel like with modern shows that people are driving, they make it look like they're actually driving in the city. So I just feel like they either needed to actually have them kind of driving in the city, or they needed to make that green screen look a lot better, because it was not convincing at all. That's the one problem I had with it. Again, everything else, visual effects wise, I was fine with, and like that doesn't bother me. Like Quantum Leap's never been known for having the best visual effects. It's just a very compelling story, honestly, and you're having fun seeing what the leaper, Sam, in this case Ben, does.
Right.
The other negative that I have about it has to do with how they're structuring their episodes. So in the original series, the main focus was on Sam and Al, the leaper and his hologram helper person, and it just made everything more interesting. And so whenever they're doing their Ben and Addison, whenever they're doing their back and forth, the thing that bugged me is whenever they would cut to inside the lab. And like, don't get me wrong, I'm liking seeing, the present, which I'll get to that in a second too. I'm liking them, seeing more of the present and everything and what that world looks like. But at the same time, whenever Addison goes to Ian, I believe is the doctor's name, the scientist working on Ziggy. Whenever she goes to Ian and is like, what's going on? And Ian says, well, Ziggy's offline, or Ziggy has this thing that they think, and Addison's like, well, wait, what do you mean Ziggy thinks this? What should we do if this would happen? And whatever. And they would have basically the same conversation in the original series, except it would just be Al and Sam having the conversation, and it made everything, I don't know, more funny.
How big was their team though? Was it as big as this one?
Well, that's the thing. You really never saw the team again until I think there were 2 episodes where they show like the present, and the one is whenever Sam leaves back, and the other one is whenever someone, like Sam switches bodies with someone, and the person that Sam switches bodies with starts like going around town and causing chaos because he doesn't want to be in a lab or whatever. But those are the times that you really see the team, and I think the team is about, as big as that, but the main focus was on your 2 leads, Sam and Al, really. Because they would constantly bring up other people. Like, Al was constantly, obviously Ziggy, the computer, but Al was also constantly talking about this one scientist whose name was Gushy. And he would, talk about other people and how, Gushy and this person are trying to date, and this is going on, there's this romance going here, blah, blah, blah. But you never really saw them. And honestly, it made things funnier in the sense, kind of like if you're watching a horror movie, right? Mm-hmm. If you're watching a horror movie, the thing that's scary is what you don't see, right? Because your mind always has a better idea of what's scary than what they can show you. Which is why a lot of horror directors, if they have like a monster, they'll make the monster unseen until the very end whenever they absolutely need to show it. And I think that could potentially be the same thing with like comedy, especially the comedy of Quantum Leap, where, like I said, where Al's talking about Gushy and this other lady, I think Tina was her name, them having like romantic relations and like a bunch of chaos going in the lab and everything. It just made it funnier because you weren't seeing it, so you could just imagine like what that kind of chaos would look like. Compared to now we're seeing what's going on in the lab and we're hearing the conversations happening between the helper hologram person and the scientist. We're actually seeing all that stuff going on, and it just, every time we cut to that in the lab, I was just like, I want to go back there. I want to see what's going on with Ben. That's the other thing. It's the fish out of water story. So like Ben doesn't know what he's doing,
right? And
so that makes everything more interesting. Where I want to see more of that. And also, whenever, again in the original series, whenever Sam would be doing something and Al's like, "All right, I'll be right back," it's seeing how seeing how Sam would adapt to doing things without Al there to help him. And then just out of nowhere, Al would come back and be like, "Oh, hey, I'm back. Here's what you gotta do." Or, "What's going on now? I don't want to what are you doing? How'd you get in this mess? And it's just like, again, funny because like Al doesn't know how he got to this point, and the whole time you've been with Sam, you're like, this is exactly how Sam got into this position. Da, da, da. So if they just stayed in the time frame, and I don't have anything against the other actors really who are doing their stuff in the present. I would rather focus just be on like the two main people that it should be really on. But yeah, so there's that. And then the problem that I have with the present, it should really be the future in my opinion. So the original series started in 89, right? But that was technically, like, their present was technically the future because Sam's first sleep was in 1995. And whenever he goes back to the present, like whenever him and Al switch places and he's like walking around there, he goes back to the year 1999, and that happened in 1992. So that's like 7 years into the future, essentially, right? And with that, if you kind of keep to that pace, by the time the series ended, it probably would have been about the year 2000. And they say in the show that it's 30 years after, so I feel like it should be at least 2030, give or take. But even if they didn't want to do that, just doing 2029 would be fine for me, because then you're doing, the future. And just show us what that looks like. But I guess they didn't want to have to create future stuff that looks dated whenever you get to more future. But that's the thing about Quantum Leap, it's a sci-fi thing. Like make it more sci-fi. Because I mean, clearly, I don't think this Quantum Leap thing would be a thing that we actually have. So just make it a future. Do something interesting with it. And then kind of going with the negative still. Another thing that I noticed where really they just needed to kind of go over this again. Whenever Addison is showing the picture of Sam Beckett, like on that little hologram and everything, if you like watch it, there's moments where like her hand moves and the image just stays in the same exact spot, and I was like, yeah, you could have done that a couple more times. Just move the picture, have the picture kind of like follow the device. But I think that's my main negatives of it. Everything else I really liked. Like I said, I like seeing more of the present. I just wish we have more of that focus over there. And it's so funny because whenever the episode started and they had the girl in the lab and she's like, oh my god, this can't be, and she calls Ben, I was like, I wonder if that's either Sam or Al's daughter. And I was like, I wonder if they're gonna bring it up.
I mean, you brought it up in the previous part where we were first talking about the first Quantum Leap, that Sam meets his daughter or whatever in the future.
Yeah. So
in one of the episodes, so I was like, oh, maybe that's the original guy's daughter. But then it's brought up later that
it's actually Al's. And then spoilers, and I guess it's a little late. We're like 10 minutes into this video, and spoilers. So spoilers. I'll put it in the description. It'll be fine. But so I saw that and I was like, ooh. Just seeing her, I was like, I wonder if this will be like one of their daughters. So like that's the only thing that really makes sense to me. And then of course they bring it up at the end that it's actually Al's daughter. And as soon as they said that it was a ring for the military, I was like, oh, okay, so it's Al's daughter. And then sure enough, they're like, Al, that's who it is. I was like, alrighty, cool. So my theory is with this that, again, because this is the only thing that makes sense. Because again, here's the two differences between the original and this one that's going on with the surprise leap that happens. With the original series, the reason that Sam leaps to begin with, even though all the testing isn't done and everything, and they haven't got everything perfected, is because they signed up with the military, and the military is planning on pulling the funding. So Sam jumped in and leaped to, kind of do just like a jump test. That way, the funding would continue essentially, and the project would keep on going. And it just so happens that it didn't work out for him. This one, all we know for sure right now is that Ben got a message from Al's daughter, and he leaves the message for Addison, obviously saying that things are going to come out about him, but just so she knows, like, he had to do it. And it's like, why though? You know, so my theory is the reason he had to do it, and we could be proven wrong, and I guess we'll see soon enough. My theory is the reason he had to do it is because Al's daughter found a code that showed like where Sam was.
Right.
And so he took the opportunity to do the jump to help get Sam out of the machine. Now, the thing that worries me about this theory is, and I didn't know this until I was like looking up, trivia about it and different things like that. Apparently, what's his name? The original actor who played Sam Beckett. I can't think of his name. Scott Bakula. There we go. Apparently, Scott Bakula, he said that he has nothing to do with this series. The showrunners, I guess, invited him to come back to play a role or something, and he said he declined it, basically. But I'm hoping that's just this first season. Like, maybe we won't get to it, but hopefully they'll bring up like why he did his jump. And I'm hoping in a later season, the showrunners can convince him to come in at least just for like an episode. Again, just so that way he can get out of the quantum leap machine,
right?
And then he can live his happy life. Because like the way like I said, the original series ends is he never got home, and it's like, okay, well now I'm just gonna cry. And it was also nice that the first episode was dedicated to Dean Stockwell, the original Al, because he actually did die last year. He died in 2021, so it's nice that they incorporated that in there. Even though we're still getting to see him, with damages and whatnot. I'm trying to think of other positives that I had. Yeah, I think that's pretty much it. And I told you I had to come back to the negatives because whenever everyone was trying to figure out why Ben could have possibly jumped and everything like that, my whole thought was, where's his phone? Like, why has no one found his stuff? Like, go to his phone. That'd be like my first thing of like, okay, because like I know he couldn't jump in it because all he has on is the white Quantum Leap jumpsuit. So go find his stuff. And I mean, it's possible that maybe they did find it and he erased all of his stuff on his phone because they said that he erased all the cameras and everything. But come on, like at least bring that up that you did it. That way we can know, okay, they did try. That was my whole thought. I was like, go to his phone. And then she gets home, she's like, the phone. She says she has a message from him, and it's just like, no one thought of this before? What the heck? But yeah, so those are my thoughts on it. Like I said, I enjoyed it. I had some things that I didn't care for. I had some things that I liked. They kept with the whole fish out of water thing where Ben doesn't know how to drive a stick shift.
Yep.
Makes sense. So I'm excited to see how the space one plays out in the next episode. I'm going to be very curious to see if every time that Ben jumps, his catchphrase is going to be "oh shh," because like I said, Sam's thing was "oh boy." But yeah, the other thing I guess I kind of wish the series did is, again, this has to do with sticking with just Sam and Al and everything.
Mm-hmm.
So we saw we saw Ben. Leaping again. He has the light that goes over his body and whatnot. And in the original series, it would go straight into Sam's next body. And it's like just like a very brief clip. Basically, what they did in this, where spaceship's taking off, and Sam goes, "Oh boy," and I know they essentially did that in this, but between Ben leaping and then Ben getting in the body, they cut away to do stuff in the present,
right? Which
I was like, no, go back. What's the next thing? And again, maybe my mind will change on the present the more I get from those actors and everything. But as of right now, they're the ones I care the least about because all they're really trying to do is.
I mean, it is interesting that they brought Desire from Sandman into.
Yes, yeah. I think whenever I was looking up the pictures, whenever I first found out that this show was coming out this year, I was looking up information on it. And I found the pictures, and as soon as I saw Desire, I was like, "Oh, okay, they're in it. Awesome." But yeah, so like I said, I think the more I get from them, the more I might like those characters. But we'll see.
Well, right now it looks like a shady government.
Yeah.
I mean, they already told us that they covered up the stolen Hope Diamond or whatever it was.
That is true. I did like whenever the guy kind of in charge of the project, whenever he brought that up, and the head of security girl, whenever she goes like to say something, she's like, no, that tracks. That tracks. I was like, yeah, that kind of does track. The government would do that. But yeah, so guys and gals, once again, those are our thoughts on the pilot episode of the new sequel series to Quantum Leap. What did y'all think? Did y'all like it more or less than us? We're gonna keep on watching it. I'll for sure be watching the whole season. I'm hoping this goes for at least a few seasons. Again, for no other reason, because I want to see Sam get out of the machine and actually live his life. But we'll see if they ever end up getting to that, because, like I said, apparently Scott Bakula said he wasn't going to be part of it. But we'll see. Yeah, just let us know what you guys think in the comments. Go ahead and give the video a like. The main reason we're kind of doing this on the road is because we have a 2-hour drive. So I figure since we watched it and we have other things to talk about, might as well just talk about them on this drive. And so after this video, you'll see another video where we talk about some other stuff. It'll be a bit of a longer one, maybe, we'll see. Because, again, long drive, lots to talk about. So, yeah, do all that, and we will see you in the next video. And until next time, have a super duper day, guys.